strides to my chagrin. Only the need to ask again. Clench my teeth as I pretend that I've got...
Today's podcast is brought to you by StrongHeartAcademy.com, where no heart is no victory. Second thing that we're brought to you by is BJJ2go.com. And the third one is Rat Bat. When you have to remove rats, get a bat. Rat Bat. That's supposed to be professional.
Oh, is that?
It's so you can sync up audio and the video at the same time.
Okay.
That's weird. I don't know what I'm doing.
Am I supposed to look at you or the camera?
You can look at whatever you want to look at. You can look at my machete.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. I got it in Honduras. When I got in Honduras, my friend, I knew everyone had machetes, and he's like, "Do you want a knife?" Okay. So we went to like this flea market thing. We went to this flea market thing, and it was like there was like a Home Depot kind of, but there's like product all the way to the ceiling and just stacked everywhere, and you can get like anything you want at this place.
Crazy.
And he's like, "How about a machete?" I'm like, "Well, can I get one with all these tassels and stuff on it? Because that's kind of the thing there. Like, they have a work machete, and then you have like your out on the town, go out on the town machete, like nice.
The fancy one.
Yeah, fancy machete, and this is like the fancy machete.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty sweet.
To get it home, did you just check it in your luggage?
It's pretty easy. Yeah, you just check it in your luggage.
All right.
I guess assume I can't get in the belly of the plane, and I'll be fine. You know, same thing with a knife. He's like, "Oh no, you just check it. It's no problem." So it worked out. Anyway, so maybe we could talk about how I know you.
Okay.
I know you because of Adam, your husband, went to high school with me, and he messaged me, and then he started training with me, and then he quit pretty quickly, and then basically your whole family your 2 kids, and then you start training with me, and then Nathan quit, and then Kaylee stayed a long time, and then you probably joined later though, right?
I joined just before Nathan quit, I think it was. Because I think they were both still training when I first started.
And you were doing the striking class?
Yeah.
Yeah, the striking class. And then Kaylee, or your daughter, started working for me and helping me out after she quit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, your daughter was amazingly mature for her age, and I never had to like ask her to do something twice.
That's
which is
good.
crazy. Yeah. Well, for her age, that's crazy. But I've even found with like adults are like kids sometimes now, like 20-year-olds, even 30-year-olds, like not doing their work and not getting things done. And then you have to tell them like, you should just get your work done. Like, I shouldn't have to ask you. I feel like a parent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do you work in management
I do.
Do you ever feel like that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want you to get in trouble at work or anything, but like
not so much with my current team, but I've definitely managed people in the past where it was like you're like a child.
You're like a child, right? I have a friend.
And they're older than me too. That's
yeah,
often
that's weird too.
Yeah.
I've been in that dynamic too when I did landscaping, where I was running a route, and I was like 16, 17, and I drove the truck, and then I had to tell like these older people what to do, and it was hard to get them to respect me because I'm a 16-year-old, but I got all my stuff done, and I outworked them. But the age dynamic was weird, and I always thought in my mind, this is so weird. I shouldn't have to talk to you like you're younger than me, and I'm younger than you. It's so weird. But I was always amazed when Kaylee was working for me. Not that the job was hard really at all, but like, again, I never had to ask her to stay off her phone. And as a teenager, like, I have so many teenager students now, everyone's on their phone, including me, too much, but she was never like texting on her phone or like doing Snapchat or whatever. Like, she was just always on her task, and I would come in and out of the office randomly. It's like she never was like hiding her phone. Like, no, she just did her work and got her work done. So you should be pretty proud of her for that. Shout out to Kaylee.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've always tried. I mean, it's really important to us to install a good work ethic in our kids, especially in today's society. You don't necessarily see that from the younger generations currently.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Right. Last night, my son was. He said they were doing. he said, Dad, you and only one other person owns a business in my class. And he just kind of openly says that. I'm like, okay, well, were they talking about that? Or were you taking a survey at school? And, we were just talking about what our parents do for work. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, kind of worried, like, what do you think I should do? I'm like, dude, do whatever you want to do. The only 3 things is, like, work hard, work smart, and have a good work ethic. Like, show up on time, if not early. Stay till the work is done. Yes. Don't leave early. Don't call in, And so I'm trying to instill that with my kids too, but sometimes I think they have, like, born lazy or something. I think it's because of my dad too. Like, I'm just a little bit more stern. I think they're lazy when they're not probably lazy at all.
Yeah. Your perspectives.
But I worry about that. Like, I don't want my kid to be a bad worker. That sounds like a weird thing to be afraid of your kid. But, like, I swear, like, I hate laziness.
Yeah. Well, and you can't help but feel like it's a reflection on you.
It is, but I think it is a reflection on me. Like, not holding them responsible. I think that's part of it. Is, like, not having any responsibilities and then also holding someone responsible. Like, you could tell a kid to do something, but there's no consequences if it doesn't get done. So all my consequences with the kids are swift, and they know that they're going to happen before they happen. Yep. It's never like a surprise, like, by the way, you're grounded forever and I'm taking everything away. No, it's like, if you don't get this done, I'm taking this away. And they know as soon as it doesn't happen, like, immediately are going and taking the thing that you love away. Yep. And you're not getting it back for a while. Yeah. So hopefully that'll inspire them over time to get their crap done and do their chores.
That's good, because that's what they'll face in the world too.
This is reality. Yes, this is your job. If you don't do your job, you lose your job. Right. And now with automation, which also scares the crap out of me, there's going to be less jobs, period. There's less jobs. My wife doesn't think so. She thinks that there'll be more engineers and stuff, but, like, that's assuming that people can be engineers.
True. That's true.
Like, not everyone's built to be an engineer.
That takes a very
engineers
specific skill set.
Yeah, it's hard.
That not everyone has,
because you have to be creative and analytical. Right. Those things don't usually go together. Yeah, that's so you have to have the math and the imagination, and many people that are good at math have zero imagination. Yeah. And vice versa. People that have great imaginations are terrible at math. Yeah. So, like, people that are engineers, I'm always fascinated by them too, because you're kind of a special human to do that. For sure. I don't know what he wants to do, and I also said, be something passionate. Do something that you want to do. It's too easy to just find a job and it's secure, and you stay there, and you make good money and it has security, and this is good, but, like, I don't want to hate life either.
Yeah, for sure.
I know a lot of people that make really good money and they hate life. Yeah. I feel very fortunate that I love my job. Like, there's no such thing like Mondays. I don't care what day it is. It's just a day.
Yeah. Like, you're definitely very fortunate.
I love to do it. So, but I was also poor for a very, very, very long time. So you have to be willing to fail, and I think that's another lesson I'm trying to teach my son too, is it's okay to fail and don't be afraid to fail. Yeah. There's a lot of kids too that I think are afraid to fail. Like, they don't want the pressure of, like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, then it doesn't work out.
And it almost paralyzes them, and they're not moving forward at all, which is worse than failing.
Exactly. So. Do you think, I mean, your kids don't seem that way though?
Not for the most part. I mean, I think there's, a certain level of being nervous and wanting to please, that exists. But I think for the most part, it's, we've kind of let them know that that's okay, that part of growing is failing. You know, and you learn. That's the best way to learn, really, is from your failures. So we just remind them of that and nudge them along. Yeah. You might be scared, but you'll be okay, Yeah, you'll come out the other side.
I mean, I know a lot of adults that are afraid to fail too, that they are afraid to pursue their passions and try to figure out how to make money. How do I make money at my thing that I'm passionate at doing, versus like, you know, I can do this other skill set. I know I'll be fine, and I'll just work at this job or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm always, the way I looked at it is like, there really isn't a safe job, because at any point, the new reality of job market is you could just be laid off at any time.
Very true.
And like, just to make shareholders make more money, you know, like, and then every quarter they're trying to make sure that they make these unreasonable goals. You know, they set almost unreasonable goals, so everyone works themselves to death. And then if they don't make the reasonable goal that they know that's probably reasonable, they have to cut people in order to make the money that they were supposed to make. And that's just crazy to me, like a way to run anything. I
mean, I work in that environment. I'm in corporate America.
Yeah.
And that's exact. I mean, I have been fortunate. I've been, you know, with my company for 18 years, I think, this year. Long time. But I have seen so many rounds of layoffs and colleagues that I've seen come and go. I've been fortunate enough to not have been impacted.
I think if you're still, you know, better than everyone around you, you don't get cut. You know, Tom, shout out to Tom Dorn.
Tom.
He told me once that you just got to be about 5 to 10% better than everyone around you. You don't have to be miles ahead of everybody, but just do more, a little bit more than everyone around you, and you'll always have your job, and you won't lose your job. And I was like, that makes sense. You know, I'm not that way. I'm like gun ho. You know, I always do like way more than I'm supposed to do. But I always was worried about that. I had an office job one time, and man, it was just so soul crushing for me. But I think it's just my personality. You know, like I think people, it's not that hard to work. It's not bad to work in corporate America, like if it fits your personality, and that's, you know, you're good at your job and you get satisfaction because you're efficient at your job and you do it well, and you have the respect of your peers. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I just know me personally, it's like it's an attack on my brain and my soul. Like I remember I had to wear a tie, and they're like, oh, you know what we're going to do for you guys? Fridays, once a month Friday, not every Friday. Don't say I get carried away. Not every Friday. You can wear a polo shirt.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, and then I remember one time not having a belt. I didn't have a belt. And like, hey, look, man, this is important. You have to wear a belt. I'm like, why? And then the job I had, we don't ever meet anybody. We were in an office, and we took I basically took checks for a mutual fund company that built churches. It was the weirdest job ever. And all I did was get checks in the mail and basically data entry, and then I cut checks to these churches that we owed the money to.
Yeah. Definitely required a tie.
What's that?
Definitely required a tie.
Yeah, I guess, you know, but I never knew why. You know, like, we're not talking to anybody.
Right.
And if I talk to him on the phone. There's no such thing as Skype back then. Like, now I think, you know, a lot of meetings are done, like we're all seeing each other. But even that, who cares? As long as I'm not offensive shirt, like, I don't know, like some drink shirt or who knows what. But just don't be offensive, and we should all be able to wear flip-flops to work. I think I wear flip-flops like every day. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, yeah, my son. So, you guys worked back to how I knew you. You trained here for a while. And then the reason I wanted to bring you in is because of you have MS. And I don't know a lot about MS. I honestly just don't understand it. I don't know. Is it a neurological disease?
Is considered neurological, but it's also autoimmune.
So it's also
you really can look at it.
So because my son has an autoimmune that is neurological also, and and I remember I vividly know when I found out and when I knew something was wrong, and the symptoms and like what led up to it and everything. Was there something that like one day you're like, this doesn't, something feels off, or like what led you to seek something that I need to figure out what's going on?
So there had been actually several years of me having just kind of weird neurological issues. I remember one time I had the whole entire right side of my body was numb. I could still use it. I just like numb to the touch.
Hit the microphone a little bit closer.
Sorry.
There you go.
It was numb to the touch.
Yep.
And
actually, I remember you telling me that in class too.
Yeah, it was super weird, and it lasted several weeks. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor that I had at the time did an MRI, so a brain scan.
Oh wow.
And didn't show anything.
Okay.
And he mentioned then, he said, I think you might be developing MS. So just keep,
that fast.
Yeah, just like keep it. Well, there was that and like one other weird event.
Okay.
He said, so just kind of, put that on the back burner, be aware of it. He was leaving the practice, leaving the state. So he said, I'm just throwing that out there. Some of the other stuff that you've been dealing with. Plus, I had a previous autoimmune disease when I was younger. Graves' disease, which attacks your thyroid. So my body's just autoimmune, as they call it. So, and that had been treated, and I was told way back then, I was like 23 at the time. Your body is autoimmune.
Oh, really?
They say. So we've treated this. Yeah. So now it's may find something else to attack. So who knows what that could be? There's like so many different autoimmune diseases, but just to be aware. So he knew that history, and I think that was part of the reason he kind of threw that possibility out there. A couple years passed, he left the practice. I actually switched to a different doctor, different practice, and I had had my wisdom teeth out, and I woke up a couple days later, and I was recovering from that just fine. But I had this absolutely, like, the worst probably pain I've felt other than...
Like dry socket?
Having my kids. Yeah, but it wasn't dry socket. It was like a nerve pain. That's just the entire side of my face. And I was, like, screaming. I mean, it was really bad. And I didn't know it was happening. And, of course, I assumed it was related to the wisdom teeth.
Dry socket was the worst pain I've ever had.
Okay, so...
And I had shoulder surgery.
Oh.
And the shoulder surgery was pretty bad when I had my muscle atrophy. I didn't realize that was terrible.
Yeah.
But I remember the dry socket, and it was like your nerve in your bone, in your jaw,
right,
is exposed basically to air.
Yes.
And it just feels like your face is on fire.
Right. So that's what
terrible.
It felt like. But
it's terrible.
But I went in fact, I called the oral surgeon, woke him up, right? Because I had gone as long as I could, and it was like 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and I just couldn't stand it. And I said, I'm meeting you at your office. And I went, and he's like, you don't have, it's not exposed. I don't know why you're having this pain, but whatever, okay, that's what it is. And he sent me to the urgent care.
Okay.
So then they're like, oh, you have, they just diagnosed it as some kind of, trigeminal neuralgia, I think is what it was called. And that's the nerve, that's the trigeminal nerve that runs through your face there. So they were basically saying it's just like inflamed, and that's the pain you're feeling. Okay. It cleared up. They gave me some pretty heavy duty pain meds.
Yeah.
Sent me on my way. And then...
Do you do okay with pain meds?
I don't like to take them because they just make me sleep. Yeah. But otherwise I do. They don't
they don't work on me.
Oh, really?
It's actually probably a good thing that I cannot be addicted to painkillers, because they don't really they don't do anything.
Oh, they definitely worked.
All the time I've ever had, I'm like, they make me like groggy, but I still feel like my face is on fire, or whatever.
The full pain.
Yeah, the full pain never seems to go away. So half the time I just don't take them.
Yeah. Well, that's probably good.
Sometimes I'll take them to sleep because I'm in so much pain. They make me so groggy that I can go to sleep through the pain.
Yeah.
But they never dull it ever. Like, it doesn't even dull the pain to me.
That's terrible.
So I never understood I guess just most people, it works,
Yeah. Well, it definitely works for me. So then about, a year or so later, I woke up one morning, and it seems like every time it's like I wake up to these things happening to me. But I woke up one morning and had double vision, and I was super dizzy. So I stepped out of bed, and I didn't realize I was dizzy that moment.
Oh my gosh.
But I fell.
I was going to say, did you fall?
I did. I like tripped and fell. I actually hit my head when I was like falling down to the ground, and called the doctor that I had already seen but had switched to. And I told him, I'm like, I have double vision, and I'm like, the room is spinning. It wasn't even just like I'm a little bit dizzy. The room was spinning. So he had me come in, and he's like, oh, you have vertigo. And I'm like, okay, but the double vision doesn't make sense with vertigo. It does. I mean, but he just insisted that's what it was. So he gave me like some motion sickness medication and sent me home. And I was dizzy and had double vision for well over a week. Like I couldn't work or anything. Oh my
gosh, that would be a nightmare.
It was horrible. Still didn't know. And I mentioned to him what my previous doctor had told me. And he said, there's no way. It's not MS, like no chance. And I go, okay. And I wasn't going to push it. He's the doctor, I'm not, although I know my body and, had already done some research on it just to know what to watch for.
Yep.
So still no diagnosis there. And then August 2015, I'm driving down the road one day and I just see this little spot in my vision. Little tiny fuzzy spot. Like I honestly thought there was something on my contact lens. And I got home, took out my contacts, cleaned them, put them in. It's still there. I'm like, oh, that's weird. The next morning I woke up and it was bigger. So I immediately called my sister's ophthalmologist. My sister has this other autoimmune thing. It's like, but it affects her eyes. So
I would assume that I got punched in the face and now I have a floater and it's just because I got punched in the face. Right? And I'm like, oh, that sucks. I guess that's part of my life.
Well, at first I thought, oh, maybe a floater. But the next day when I woke up and it was like, significantly more of my vision was blurry. I'm like, And it wasn't even blurry. It was like fuzzy. It was like a ball of fuzz I just couldn't see through. So I went and made an appointment with him, and he did a whole bunch of tests, and he told me to come back the next day because he had dilated my eyes, and he didn't see anything wrong, and he's like, I wanted to run one more test, come back tomorrow. So that was a Thursday. So Friday morning, I wake up completely black in that eye, no sight.
Okay, I remember that now. I remember that one eye you couldn't see out of.
Nothing, completely black. Of course, I freaked out.
For sure.
And went to the emergency room.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, so, because the first, there's a million things that go through your head, but whenever, you lose your sight in one eye, you're thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be blind, or what's going to happen to this other one, whatever. So I get to the emergency room, and then they started, and I mentioned just my whole history. They started asking me all kinds of questions, sent me for an MRI. I actually was in the emergency room, they're just like little rooms with the curtains. So you really can hear like everything that's going on outside. And I hear the doctor say, the ER doctor say, oh, it's MS? Okay. And I just, like, I knew they were talking about me. And I think at that, Adam was in Tucson, and he was like, trying to get up here as quick as possible. My mom had taken me to the emergency room, and my boss at the time, who was amazing, showed up.
Oh, that's nice.
So she was sitting with me in the room, and of course they come in, and I had already heard what they said, and they're like, okay, we've found a couple lesions on your brain. And
what does that mean?
So a lesion is a scar, basically, where your immune system has sent over, it's overactive, so it sends antibodies essentially and attacks the nerves. Okay. So there's a sheath around your nerves called the myelin sheath.
Okay.
And that's specifically what those antibodies will attack.
Oh, wow.
So it wears them down, and then it creates like a plaque or a scar on them. But when it wears them down, it would be like, shaving the plastic off a cord. So now the actual parts of the cord, the wires are exposed, which then means the transmission of information is not happening either at all or as quickly, or it's messed up. So those lesions, the way they appear in an MRI is like a white spot, and that's where the damage is.
Okay.
Yeah. So on and MS affects your brain and your spinal cord. So your entire central nervous system is at risk, essentially, with MS. So they saw a couple lesions, which kind of explain, some of the other things that had happened after that very first MRI I had many years ago.
Yeah.
And
so you think that you've had it quite a while before the symptom, before like you were getting these things that like were the real wake up call.
That's right. The eye thing is what really, sent me to make sure that I really had it checked out, obviously, because I was just freaking out. So and then my optic nerve. So it will attack your optic nerves. So what I was experiencing was a active attack on my optic nerve. So my immune system was attacking the nerve and it shut it off, basically. It damaged it to the point where it just wasn't working, essentially. So it wasn't anything wrong with like my actual eyeball or any of the parts of your eye other than what's in your brain, which is the optic nerve. And they could see on the MRI that, a healthy one looks a certain way, and mine didn't look didn't look that way. Yeah. So I was admitted into the hospital, and part of the process. So it wasn't like I wasn't officially diagnosed right then, because it's very hard to diagnose.
But he's just telling you his opinion of what he thinks it is.
Because of those suspicious lesions.
This is like Brock, his thing, like there's no official test that they can do.
Exactly.
That goes, yep, this is what it is. His is like symptom, basically kind of like, you're kind of like, doctors are kind of like a detective, right? You have clues, and like certain things add up to this. Like these three scenarios add up to probably it's this.
Yes.
But versus like photographic evidence, like, oh, I saw you just stabbed that guy.
Right.
It's not.
There's
like
no
that.
Blood test that says yes, you're positive for this or that. Nothing.
So like Brock, when he was being crazy, I just knew there was some problems. Like he was acting very strange, and then his cognitive level dropped. And Brock, like everyone says their kid's smart. By the way, everyone thinks their kid is smart, but Brock is like. He's
incredibly intelligent.
He's really smart. Yes. My son is super smart.
Super.
And when he was like 4, he knew 15 people's birthdays, and he was doing math problems, and we would just throw math problems at him, and he would like, oh, it's this. And he knew all the capitals and all the states at 4 years old.
Oh my God.
Which is just crazy,
that's like genius
right?
level.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So we would just play with him. Hey, Brock, what's your birthday? And he was like, oh, it's this. And one day he was like, I don't know my birthday. And then I was like, what are you talking about? You don't know your own birthday? Because he knew, he knew more birthdays than I could remember of my friends. I got about 6 people I know their birthdays.
Yeah.
And that's it. Facebook tells me the rest.
Right.
Exactly. But he knew them by heart, and then it was the symptoms. And then one day, and like he couldn't figure out math problems, and and they were like so quick. Like he doesn't have to I have to think it out. Like I don't hold numbers in my head. Well, he could just spit it out. And then one day we were at church, and he was telling me that I smell oranges, and I said, buddy, there's no oranges in the car. He's like, I just smell oranges. And then he's like, and I smell cookies too. And I'm like, there are no cookies in this car. We are in a sealed car. There's nobody around us. And that was like the trigger in my own head that I knew that some people with neurological problems will smell things that aren't there.
Right.
So we took him that following Monday. That was a Sunday. We took him Monday, and I was telling the pediatrician these things. He's like, let's test him for strep. And I was like, no. He's not saying that his throat is a problem.
Right.
He's like, there's this thing that we're seeing, and some doctors don't believe it's real, but let's just it won't take long. We'll swab it. I'll come back 5 minutes later or whatever, 10 minutes. I'll have the results. He comes back. He had strep, and he was like, look, you need to see a neurologist. I think it's this thing called pandas. And that's how we found out. But even in the end of it, it's like, if you're acting crazy and have strep but no symptoms of strep,
right,
you have the pandas, like this thing. And I feel bad because so many people with pandas had it for years, and these kids were on like antipsychotic medicine, and meanwhile their brains are swelling. So what happens is it's an autoimmune disease, and I don't know the specifics actually, because we never got the MRI. Never did an MRI.
Okay.
Because the neurologist said he's a little young, and like, I don't feel like he needs an MRI, but I do feel like when this happens, just give him ibuprofen. So we just give him ibuprofen, and it helps with the swelling on the brain.
Wow.
And that's it.
Okay.
So, and then we give him antibiotics every day. So he's been on antibiotics. That's the bad part. He's been on antibiotics since he was 4.
Just consistently.
Every day.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you have to give him probiotics to help his stomach.
Yes.
Because he has some stomach problems too. But he's been pretty good for a long time. Like, he hasn't had any episodes anymore. Doesn't act, and he would get really crazy and violent and say crazy violent things that are not in his nature.
Sure.
To say, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? These things. But I remember that, there was no test, because I was like, can we test this? He's like, no, there's just no test. It's just, we know that people that get strep that have 0 symptoms of strep, like, he had no fever off of it. He had no, didn't hurt his throat.
Yeah.
But when he gets strep, he'll act crazy. And even sometimes when he gets sick, or someone around him is sick, so it's autoimmune disease, where his white blood cells are attacking his brain, and it causes his brain encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain. So the goal is to get the swelling down of the brain. And then they told me too, every time that happens, it's permanent. So like, it's gonna do something to his brain. Like,
the
so
damage.
you have to reduce it as fast as possible. So but she was telling me, the neurologist, that there's these kids that had it for years, like 9 years, they've had their brain just swelling, and they're just giving them antipsychotic medicine, not ibuprofen.
Right.
Like, literally, it's just ibuprofen. They just keep swelling down
for the inflammation.
Inflammation or anti-inflammatories. You could probably take stronger stuff too if it's like a real problem. But his is just give him pediatric ibuprofen, and he seems fine.
That's working.
And
that's
it works pretty instantly. Sometimes we'll switch off Motrin Tylenol.
Yeah.
But he's, and then now, when he was a little kid, they put their hands in their mouth all the time. Like, how do you get your kid to go to school and not get sick? It's like impossible.
Absolutely.
But now that he's older, like, he washes his hands, and he's not just sticking his hands in his mouth every 2 seconds or in his nose and get himself sick. So I feel like
he's aware of what he needs to do to help.
Yeah, he's a little,
as much as he can,
a little bit,
at his age, but
a little bit more aware.
Yeah.
But anyway, my whole point was that I always thought it was like, I wanted like the proof, like
There's
need you
nothing definitive.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was hard
It's
for
really
me.
hard.
For me,
Yeah.
But I saw the things that we were doing were helping. So I was like, okay, if these things help that disease, and we're doing these things and it's helping, I feel like that's it. Like,
proof.
it's basically putting 2 and 2 together.
Yes.
But there's no writing on the wall. But obviously you're seeing the lesions on the was it a CAT scan or MRI? MRI.
Yeah. And then they did a spinal tap, which is horrible.
I heard that's so painful.
It's so bad. And there's, certain things they're looking for in
the fluid.
Yeah. Which they really interesting depending on what part of the world you live in. The requirements for helping to diagnose are different. So in the United States, what they were looking for in my spinal fluid are referred to as O-bands. And most people have none. I had 2. The number, whatever that number is they're looking at, came back at 2. In the U.S., they're looking for 4 or more to help with the diagnosis. In the UK, I've obviously done a ton of research on this, but it's 2.
It's your health.
Right? I need to know.
This is honestly also, unfortunately, modern medicine, you have to be your own doctor at this point. Like, if you can't take one doctor and go, this is what it is. Nah. Like, you need to research yourself and multiple.
Be your own advocate.
Yeah, you have to
huge.
be.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
for
sad.
Sure. Yeah, I can give you some examples of when that's so important. But yeah, so like in the UK, the 2's the number. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, that could be part of it, plus the lesions, and then they purposely left me untreated for 6 months. Because that's part of the process, to see if I had any more issues come up, and I did, and then there were more lesions, like another one popped up, and then they finally said, okay, we definitely think it's MS, and we'll start the treatment. Yeah, and the treatment is, it's not curable. But they can give you basically immunosuppressive drugs to suppress your immune system, to reduce the number of attacks, on the brain and spinal cord, which of course there's a whole host of potential risks when you're suppressing your immune system. So you talk about washing your hands, and I have to be really aware of what I'm being exposed to. And I know people are sick at work. Yeah. I'm just not going, because if I get I'll pick up a cold probably more easily than most people, but then I get really sick.
Because your body can't. It's hard for your body to fight it.
Yeah, because I'm on this drug that's purposely suppressing my immune system. Yeah, so. But it's interesting because I guess it's been 4 years, just over 4 years now, since my diagnosis, and I've gone through this whole myriad of how I feel about it. At first I was devastated. And then you have doctors telling you oh, you can't do all of these things anymore, which for me was really hard because I can do whatever I want.
No, tell me what to do.
You're not the boss of me.
I'm Mighty Mouse.
So that was really tough. And then I had I went through these periods of, I got this, and I'm going to be a huge advocate for MS, and I'm going to do all the walks and share the knowledge and, do all that. And then I would go into oh my gosh, I have this disease and I'm going to have it forever. And then I'd get really depressed. And then I came out of that. And then it's most recently it was maybe I don't actually have this disease. So, because I'm doing so well. So then I quit taking my medication.
Oh, no.
Right? Not good. I'll be, this will be real talk right now.
Okay.
So I went a couple of months and I didn't take it. And I felt so much better. Because that medication, it just sucks, right?
Side
it
effects
just makes me feel really crappy. And I'm okay, I don't have a lot of my symptoms and I feel really good. Yeah, maybe I don't have this. Yeah, I don't have it. And I went totally into this denial period. And I just wasn't really taking care of myself like I should. The things that I know I'm supposed to do because I have this, disease or whatever. So kind of stopped doing all that stuff. And then, boom, I have this major relapse. That's what they call it when you have a new attack. I was in the hospital. Again, they always admit you into the hospital. So this was just a couple months ago.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so June. And
June, that's not even a couple. Well, I guess it's a couple. 2 months ago. 2 months ago.
The end of June. And they're have you been taking your medication? No. And why is that? I'm getting, and I go to the Mayo, I'm a Mayo Clinic patient, and they just don't play. It's not what are you doing?
Yeah.
So of
they
course
specialize in neurology stuff, right? Yeah.
So of course I get lectured.
Good though that this is in your backyard though.
Yeah, true.
Because you literally live
a mile
a mile away, right?
Exactly.
We were with Brock. We were fortunate too because at the time when he was diagnosed, so few doctors knew anything about pandas. There really literally only two, and one was in Philadelphia and one was here. And the lady, she was at the Children's Hospital. Then she just started her own neurological practice. And so we just went to her, and she was super helpful. And I had no insurance when it first happened, so I was paying cash.
Oh my gosh.
And she's a specialist, so it's $500 just to talk to her for an hour. So but she was very helpful, and because we're paying cash. She would give us a steep discount, and that's one thing I learned too with healthcare. If you pay cash, you can get things cheaper than insurance, which is insane because I'm paying a monthly premium.
Yes. Plus a deductible.
Yep. And then, but I just pay cash, and they're oh, cool.
Yeah, it's just cheaper.
Because doctors hate insurance too because they get screwed.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So they're rather you want to give me cash? Cool. I'll give you a steep discount.
Yeah.
So so health savings account is actually I think better than insurance. To be honest with you. But
absolutely.
Unless you have the big stuff brain surgery, heart surgery, big surgeries and stuff, that's going to cost you $500,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so where do you where are you at now then?
So
just
now,
taking your stuff again, or?
Yeah, well, no. So here's where my decision that I made to kind of go off on my own and see, really see what was going on for real, or convince myself. I don't know what it was. just one of the things that my brain does, you know, as I'm kind of challenging. I tend to buck the system in times, and there's consequences to that, right? So I'm in the hospital. Usually, so the course of treatment when you're having like in the heat of a relapse is they give you an IV steroid. It's called Solumedrol. That's the brand name of it. It's 1,000 milligrams. They pump you full of within in an hour, 3 to 5 times. So over the course of 3 or 5 days. So in this case, I had it for 3 days. I've had it every other time.
You might not be able to tell, but she's not a big lady. She's kind of tiny.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of.
It's a lot, and I'm very sensitive to medication anyway. Like anything I take, I have to take basically half of the normal dose. I'm just too sensitive to it. So, they get, you know, the situation I was having most recently. I woke up with the double vision again, which was super weird because I didn't mention this, but my eye never recovered from that previous.
It's still black?
It's not completely black, but all I see are very light shadows.
Oh my goodness.
So for all intents and purposes, I'm like basically can't see out of my right eye. But apparently I can see enough to have double vision when that happens. So I woke up.
Double shadows.
Yeah, it was super weird. So I had like a normal, like my left eye works fine. And then I had this like shadow, but it was at an angle and it was just totally messing me up. So I was dizzy and nauseous from that and had double vision. So, of course, I know when I have stuff like that, I have to just go to the emergency room. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I did that. So I get admitted, and, you know, they do this whole panel of blood work, which they always do, and everything was normal. My thyroid was a little off because I take medication for that, and it just goes up and down anyway. So whatever, they give me the 3 days. Had that drug before 3 or 4 times before in the past. Get out of the hospital. Things are clearing up. I'm on, you know, my doctor's like, okay, we're going to start you on a new medication, something that's going to be probably more effective for you anyway, because when I was doing it, it's injections 3 times a week. I have terrible reaction to it.
You have to do it yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Are they small diabetic needles? Or
they're very small. Okay. They are very small. But because I'm so sensitive to medication, I would go into this weird, like, my body temperature didn't actually drop, but I felt like it did, and I would shiver, like convulsively shake every time I did the injection for like a good 15 minutes. No matter what, I'd have get a huge welt. So any given time, I'd have, you know, like 3 giant welts on my body because you alternate, you know, the areas. So that was also part of why I'm like, I just don't want to deal with this medication anymore. And I had mentioned that to the doctor, and I don't know that he really understood like how bad it was when I would have this reaction, because he'd be like, well, you know, if you can tolerate it.
Think, you know, good doctors are empathetic, and not all doctors are empathetic.
True.
You know what I mean? Like they can be intelligent and understand what needs to be done, but that doesn't mean that they are empathetic with side effects or what you're dealing with.
True.
Or anything like that, you know. And you know, I've had doctors where I can't have you as a doctor anymore. Like, you just don't give a crap.
Yeah.
You know, like I need you to pretend that you give a crap.
Yeah.
You know,
at least like you're listening to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's tough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when I saw him most recently, same doctor, and he's like the top one at the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, that's the other problem. Like, just because he's the top doesn't mean he's empathetic.
Yep.
But you still want the top doctor, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. So when I talk to him, you know, at my follow-up, I'm like, look, you know, here, I'll give you the whole the whole rundown of why for a couple of months I wasn't doing my medication. So whatever, I kind of was questioning it, and then this medication was doing this crazy things. And he finally was like, okay, I didn't realize it was that bad. Because he even said, I know you've mentioned that to me before. Let's try something different. It's a daily pill. You know, it's not injections. However, you have to go through this whole course of like tests. They test your heart, all kinds of stuff. Because again, it's immunosuppressive, even more so than the previous one I was on, and has a whole different list of side effects. So they needed to make sure I was healthy. So in the course of them following up on as I mentioned, my thyroid was a little bit crazy. My regular doctor, my primary care, he ran a panel to test my thyroid, and the panel apparently also tests your liver. So he calls me and he says, your thyroid's a little off, but we'll adjust that, but I'm more concerned about your liver enzymes. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, when you got admitted into the Mayo Clinic, I have the results and they were normal. And now, one number should be less than 40. The other number should be less than 30, and you're at like 400 and 200 or something like that. He goes, so I don't know what's going on, but we need to look into this. So I go in and I see him, and he's like, do you drink? I don't drink. I very rarely drink. Plus my numbers were normal before. And he's like,
you don't drink before 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I at least wait till Bloody Mary,
That's right. I do enjoy
Bloody Mary's
Bloody
not
Mary.
a drink. There's fruit.
Breakfast.
There's breakfast in there.
Yeah, that's
no,
right.
but you're not a drinker, is what you're saying.
I
it's
just
like,
am not.
I don't have
I mean,
a reason
for my liver to be all crazy, right? So, so he's like, well, I'm going to monitor it. In the meantime, try to get into the Mayo Clinic and see a specialist. We got to figure out what's going on. And I said to him, the only thing that's changed is that IV steroid that you guys gave me. And he goes, well,
those big,
the super doses that I've had before, and he's like, well, that doesn't, it doesn't really do that. It really shouldn't be affecting your liver. Like long-term use of low.
Through your liver, though, right? I mean,
it is absolutely. Whether you are ingesting it or it's being pumped into your veins, it's still going through. So, he's like, well, let's continue to just monitor this. So then I get every week. He's like, I want to test it. So he tests it the next week and he calls me and he's like, okay, now something like we're off the rails here. You're now at 1,800.
Oh my gosh. It's supposed to be below 30 or 40?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So
does it hurt or does you have what kind of symptoms do you get from like a liver?
So I just like a dull ache that I wouldn't have even thought anything of if I didn't know that it's, and then most recently I've been like really nauseated, and I'm on it like an anti-nausea medication right now. I don't do good with nausea at all. So bad.
I'm not good at that.
Basically every time until they put me on that nausea medication, like I'd eat and then within an hour like it was all coming up.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, so luckily everything's on the decline. Your liver does heal. It can heal.
Yeah, the liver's
itself,
crazy.
Right?
It's actually one of the cooler. Well,
yeah,
you need all your organs, but like
of all your organs,
the liver like can
it like cleans
itself.
Yeah, for sure. So, and they did an ultrasound and they checked all my other organs because there's a whole bunch of other even more scary things that can cause those numbers to climb that quickly, like cancer in your pancreas, like the really scary stuff. So
you don't want
I
that.
like a week I'm kind of freaking out. Like, oh my gosh,
this is
what's
recently
happening? Yeah, like 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, Lacie.
I know. So
I didn't know any of this. I just
know.
want to know about.
I know you just happened to ask me to come talk about, and I'm just going.
Sometimes, like I this sounds weird, but I pray for you sometimes. Like
Thank
I have
you.
like a little prayer list that I go through, and every once in a while, I want to pray about. I haven't talked to Lacie in a while.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate that.
And I pray for you, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I probably should call you and say, Lacie, what should I actually be praying for?
No, just good health is good. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, so it's coming down. Still high, still in like the low hundreds, but on its way down. And but the funny thing is so Adam, who also sees the same doctor, had gone in just like for a checkup or whatever, and he mentioned to my doctor, he goes, because I tend to joke about these things, which is good or bad, I don't really know, but like how, it's just kind of how I deal with it. So
yeah.
I said, hey, when you see the doc, tell him, I'm still alive, because he was really concerned. So I didn't think Adam would actually say that, but he did. Tell him I said hi and I'm still alive over here. So he did, just jokingly, and the doctor said to him, he's like, yeah, she's got me a little nervous. And then he goes, and I did find some information on that like a few cases, very rare.
Why the heck isn't he contacting you?
Why no, he did. He did. He did.
He's just waiting for your husband to come in?
So
oh, by the way, I was meaning to get around to tell
him. Like overlap, you know, because I had talked to him, and my doctor even made a comment to me, and he goes, I don't know if it's like, because, well, he sees a lot of other patients that have MS. Mm-hmm. That's how I found him. My neighbor, ironically, has MS. Okay. And she told me to see him after that other doctor ignored, you know, what I was telling him, because I'm like, I'm not seeing you anymore. So he said he says to me, a lot of my patients with MS, and he goes, I don't know what it is about you guys, but you seem to have like this sense of like, it is what it is, you know. And I go, well, how else do you want me to be? I go, he goes, well, like, you know, he goes, and it was about the liver stuff, and he goes, you should like be a little bit nervous about this. And he goes, and you're like sitting there like nothing, you know, like you're perfectly fine. And I said, well, I've gotten really good at hiding my anxiety. Yeah. You know, especially related to my health.
But this is also not the first rodeo. Right. This is 4 years.
That's right.
You've learned to cope with it to as much as you can. Right. You know, like you said that at first you were like felt devastated. You know, so he's assuming that you're just gonna be devastated forever. But like, part of that, I think, is just the coping process, process of it. Like, I'm trying to deal with and you're a fighter, so, you know, I think just your nature as a fighter, and not because you train with me as a fighter, but like just in general, you're a fighting kind of person, you know. Right. So, you know, I can see how you're not. Hey, I don't want to stay down. Yeah. You know, I have other options, and your option, and the way that you feel about something, like we have. You can make the choice, you know, to feel the way that you feel.
It is a choice,
you know, and sometimes it's harder to make the choice. For sure.
Like I said, I've dealt with the depression, which was never something I had dealt with. It's not so fun. I totally can relate. You know, that. It's not. Yeah, it's not right. Good. Like you trying to pull yourself out of that. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to do. Yeah. So I can, you know, I have a lot more empathy and compassion towards people that deal with that. Yeah. But you're right. It's like, okay, I'll have moments where I'm like, you know, my life sucks and this is horrible and why is this happening to me? Does, you know, and then, but for the most part, it's like, okay, I have a couple options here, right? Like I can crawl into a hole, you know, and crawl into a ball and just shut everyone out and like I'm just gonna let this thing take over me, or I can try to be as positive as I can, and you know, just keep on trucking. And I choose the latter for the most part, you know, because that's what I have to do. So it's so when he sat you down this last time, and they're finding out, they think he knows why it was the numbers, from that medication. Oh, it was from that drug. That's what he thinks. So I still see a specialist next week. Are
better?
Coming down.
Okay, that's good.
So they were like I said, like super high, like 1,000-ish.
Quit doing Bloody Marys.
No more Bloody Marys. Yep. Adam and I went on this wonderful like resort staycation thing last weekend, and you know couldn't drink, which was fine. I mean, I don't have to, but you know, everyone's floating around the pool with their cocktails.
Does he still brew his own beer?
No, he doesn't.
He's done.
He hasn't done that in a while.
Fad's done.
Yeah, he goes through those cycles.
He's like master.
On to.
I remember he brought like a pony keg, and he had like he was wheeling it around, and then he had the nitrous or whatever it was to push it out, and I was like, man, this is like a whole thing. Yeah, it was good. It tastes good. And I was like,
it was really good.
That was also before like IPA was like that's the fancy like white people drink beer now. Right. IPAs, you know, Carly loves them, and he was like, it seemed like I think it was an IPA that he was making or whatever. It was like a darker beer.
Yeah, probably.
It was very strong. I had like 3 of them. I was like,
yeah.
Whoa.
He made a raspberry one that was amazing.
Oh, I like sweet stuff. So
it was so good. But but you know, I just haven't been able to. I can't like right now take any Tylenol or ibuprofen. All of those things that can be a little hard on the liver. Just letting it chill out, and it is getting better. And then I have been doing, you know, some like natural kind of homeopathic stuff too, which I think is helping. in terms of like the foods that I'm eating and things I'm drinking, like green tea and
it's
all that kind of stuff.
You know, when my son Brock was diagnosed with this, the neurologist gave us all these like essential oils to take.
That's awesome. You never hear of
no. And then my doctor friend was like super skeptical. I was like, what? And I, even to this day, like, I don't know about all the essential oils, but we were giving them to him, you know, a lot of them, like we were doing all kinds of stuff, and we were soaking his feet, and we were like, but these are all things that she told us to do. Like, we weren't looking this up. This is a neurologist, not a naturopath, you know? A neurologist told me. And, you know, but she could have been telling these things just to help us feel better about like it, but I don't know, they seem to help. We don't do much of it anymore, though. We were giving him so much stuff, like we were giving him like lavender and stuff, but he hasn't had any problems for so long, like that we just keep continually give him the antibiotics. And then my other doctor friend was telling me that he was thinking that we should try to do a PICC line and give him a ton of antibiotics, because he believes that might be an infection that sits on the top of the brain and just like on the outside sheath, and then the antibiotics just beat it down but don't ever kill it. And then when he gets strep, it inflames that and then attacks his brain. Okay. So this is his theory, you know. So I don't know. We went on vacation last month, and we did this long vacation, and there's a couple days where he didn't take his medication, and I was actually starting to just kind of like experiment with him, see how he did, because the last time we talked to the neurologist, they wanted to go every other day, and it did not work out good. Like instantly the next day he was acting wacky, so we went right back on medicine. But this last time he seemed okay, but by the fourth day I couldn't tell if it was just tired and worn out from this trip, you know. And also sometimes kids just have an episode, you know, they just have
a rough day. It happens.
So but he's back. We just put him back on the medicine, and he seems to be okay. I don't really want to risk it, and because every time that happens, it can affect his brain. So I don't want to like play Russian roulette with my sons. I don't want to do that, you know. Like, but that's what they kind of wanted me to do when they said try every day and see how it goes. And then I'm like, I don't want to do more damage either. And I've thought about like, and the PICC line was going to cost quite a bit of money, you know. And I might maybe we'll think about doing that. I don't know yet, Brock, but he seems to be doing okay. And I think his is hopefully gonna. My hope is that he grows out of it, because pandas is a pediatric disease.
Okay.
The P stands for pediatric.
Okay.
It's pediatric autoimmune neurological something else. Pandas.
Okay.
So so hopefully he. You know, my hope is he will grow out of it as an adult and not be an issue. Yeah, not be an issue.
That would be wonderful.
But I don't know. It's also so new that like they don't really know. Not enough people are studying it. Somebody rich kid has to get it, and then
that's true.
They'll have some fundraisers, and then people will
you
know, research it and stuff, and that's sad, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
So. Well, what do you think you're gonna do? Like, what's the next plan? Just gotta wait and
once my liver gets better, I can get on that other medication.
Oh, you're still not on that?
I'm just totally unmedicated at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sure, not even take the injections either.
No.
Do you feel better?
Well, I always feel better.
You always feel better because you're not taking the medicine.
I do, but I'm still, so in addition to the most recent lesion that was causing the dizziness and or the double vision and dizziness, they found 3 others actually. So
lesions.
Yes, that didn't give me any symptoms. So I mean, no more playing, right? Like I just got to take it.
Did you get another spinal?
No, they hopefully will never have to do that again.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't tell them like if any kind of progression or anything like that.
No. The progression is the MRI is how they determine the progression.
And do they feel like it over time, like taking the medicine just slows down the process of it?
The progression of the disease. So I have relapsing remitting, and it is a progressive disease. So assuming if all goes well, I'll never move to the next progressive state.
This is good. That's great.
And that's what the medication is for. And I was completely reminded by every neurologist that came into my hospital room, and there were many.
Yeah, they're like, you don't want to be on the next level.
That's right. And the next one is secondary progressive, and that's when people start to really become disabled.
Yeah.
And so I need to do everything I can to avoid that. So as soon as I can, I'll be back on the meds.
Well, how many weeks until you see your doctor again?
Well, I see the hepatologist, which is a liver specialist at the Mayo Clinic, Tuesday next week. Hepatologist, yeah.
Like Hep C?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So I see him next week, and then hopefully as soon as my numbers get back to normal, all my other tests were fine to start that medication, so then we'll get going with it.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do it.
I just was interested in it, and I kind of wanted to just think. I told Carly last night we were floating in the pool, which is awesome that I have a pool now.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm nervous. I don't know, what to ask, but I just know that kind of things that I had on my mind that I was curious about.
Mm.
So, like, I'm curious about it, not... Like,
yeah.
I said I didn't want to like write down questions
Sure.
and say, question 1, what is your, what's your favorite holiday? What's your favorite lipstick? What's your whatever. I just wanted to, I was curious about like, when you're diagnosed with something, how do you deal with that? And also the disease itself. Like, I didn't fully understand it. And I was just curious about it itself,
Yeah.
And I thought about, like, if I was diagnosed with it, how would I feel, and, like, and how would I react to that? And so, like, for me, again, this is just curiosity. And for the podcast, people were asking me, like, oh, so you're going to talk about jiu-jitsu? I was like, yeah, I mean, I can, but a lot of the things that I just want to have people that I'm interested in or subjects that I'm interested
Sure.
in. And almost like a learning for me to learn, like I just want to learn about it. And
yeah, I think that's great.
And then kind of share it on a podcast for other people to learn about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't hear a lot of stuff about MS, and it's not like out there.
It's not,
out there.
You
and
hear
I heard
of like
MS.
a few, like Monta Williams. And
yeah.
Selma Blair recently did,
Selma Blair?
She was in Cruel Intentions. She was like the good girl in Cruel Intentions. Anyway, I think she did like an award show, and just before it, she talked about it. And she was in the middle of a pretty rough relapse, so you could hear it in her voice. I mean, because it's your central nervous system, it has a potential to affect pretty much every function of your body, which is super scary.
Yeah.
So you talk about the diagnosis, and a lot of times people immediately will like, what does that mean for me? And it is progressive. So it's scary, you just don't really know. Will I be in a wheelchair? There's like other aspects of it. I have people say to me all the time, well, you look really great. Like, I would never know, you know, and it's like, thank goodness, I have other things going on that are like not evident, physically, a lot of pain in my legs, just weakness here and there and that sort of stuff. But I personally, I feel have been very fortunate that I don't have a lot of symptoms, that can, some cognitive things. I struggle to find my words, which is interesting when I'm at work, because I give presentations and I do training and stuff, and sometimes it's like I feel myself and I stop and I'm clearly trying to find that word I'm looking for. But
yeah, I've had that my whole life, and I've just I learned to deal with it.
Yeah, right. I mean,
I just deal with it. I don't know if you know what what it's called. I definitely have dyslexia, and I never realized that dyslexia was like more than just switching letters.
That's right.
When I was younger, I thought it was just B's and D's,
Right.
And then older, I realized that like, no, it's this whole host of things that
there's
are
a lot more
weird things. So
yeah.
Sometimes when I write, I'll have the word in my head, and then I write a different word, and I'm like, in the process of doing it, and it happens, like, what the F? Like, that's not it. And then I gotta fix it, and So that was difficult for schooling for me, but words will do that too.
Yeah.
They'll escape my mind, or I'll say a word that's not the word that I wanted.
Yeah.
And then typing is that way. Definitely, typing is just as bad as writing. Is that things are missing and punctuation is missing and words are missing, and like doesn't even seem like English. Like someone that barely has a concept of English would write better than that, but it's just the way it is. And for me personally, I just deal with it. But I could see if you didn't have that before and like you're at a different level, and and then suddenly like it's a hindrance, and even if it's a hindrance for your job, is difficult, would suck.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I've had to get used to it.
Yeah.
I've
adapt.
Exactly.
Adapt.
Yeah.
And do you feel like your family? I mean, I know your family fairly well, so I feel like they would be pretty supportive. Like
definitely.
You feel like you have the support of your family and your sister. I've never actually, I think I've met your sister, but
I don't think you have.
You've talked about her enough, and you've talked about your dad enough that I kind of know about him. So, it's nice to have a supportive family.
Definitely.
When we were going through our housing problem that we were having, like I always reminded myself that I was fortunate that we had family on both sides that helped us.
Sure.
Like so many people just don't have a family, or their family sucks.
Right. That's true.
You don't get to pick your family. Right. So sometimes they just suck, and they're not supportive. They're not. And then when you go through those times of depression, or you're dealing with something hard, sometimes you just need someone to just talk to and sit next to, and like, I'm sure like, hey Adam, like, sorry, but you need to hear everything I have to tell.
I know.
Like, and if you have a good spouse, like they're willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Or like, and I'm sure your kids are like super supportive too. And so that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, definitely are. Yeah, because people will say, oh, you never complain. I'm like, yes, I do.
People,
but it's
those are the people hearing it. Yeah, that's part of being a family. Like that's your job as like a husband or a wife or a kid. Like you should be supporting your family. That's normal,
Yeah. No,
but I know people that don't have that, and I always try to remind myself when things are tough that like you are very fortunate that you have this in your life. That you have people that care and are willing to listen and not fake listen or wait for their turn to talk and kind of stuff like that. So
that's true.
Well, I have nothing else. So thanks for talking. Hopefully it wasn't too hard to talk to me.
No, not at all.
It was smooth and not forced.
No.
I think that's my other thing. I'm trying to like talk to people and not have like a forced conversation or like a agenda, just like talk.
No, I think that's great.
It's like smooth,
it's just natural that way.
So I don't know when this will be up. I'm still learning how to do all that stuff too.
Okay.
I have on Libsyn, and it's a service that you put it on there, and then it shoots it to like all the podcasting services.
Oh, cool.
So my iTunes should be up hopefully in a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah, or Google if you're a weirdo and you have Google Play instead of an iPhone. I look down on you now. No, but it should be out. But the YouTube channel is out, so like all the video is on there, and then we mix the audio, and I take that, and then the video and audio will be together, so you can watch it. Hopefully it sounds all right.
The other ones you've posted on YouTube are really good.
They're really good?
For sure.
Did you see the first? I only did 2 so far.
The tips.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That sucked. That was a hard.
I love that dog too.
I didn't even go over like the whole week. That was a week of terribleness.
Oh man.
That was like a terrible week. That was like the worst week of my entire life, and not just because I had to put my dog down. That was like the icing.
It was all in your face.
It was.
I mean, immediately I saw that. I'm like, I'm sorry.
So bad.
That's rough.
We were dealing with some terrible stuff in life, but life is balling now, so it's good.
Yeah, good. There you go.
I think that's it. Well, thanks, Lacie.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.
Let me talk for just a second, help me feel that sense of rhythm. Find the meanings in our bearings and discover this position as a stage along the way. Another rung to the ladder, either stalling or you're climbing, and I'd rather beat the ladder. Instead of getting fatter, let the footsteps resume. Naturally we